Hey, Jen Pacici here. I am here with a pep talk. Today I'm going to be talking about positive self-talk for artists and creatives. I honestly think we all could use positive self-talk because most of the thoughts in our head are not helpful and also not true. But I know it especially can affect people who are creative and trying to make a business out of it. So I was driving to the grocery store the other day. On Being, the show, the radio show was on, and the woman, she was not talking about being creative, but she had this phrase that she would say to herself when she was kind of spiraling, and it was something like, pause, and you're in crisis. It's okay to just be still for a minute. And I was like, that is so good to do, to stop and be kind to yourself. And also that stops the spiraling thoughts. So I wanted to do an episode for artists. So the first point I want to make, I have to look at my piece of paper. Okay, so our thoughts, first of all, my whole basis for my spiritual practice, my art practice, my life is that our thoughts, you do not think your thoughts. Your thoughts think you. And if you don't believe me, try to stop thinking. I'll give you a minute. Maybe for that moment you stopped thinking, but I bet if you tried it later, you can't. It's like it's an uncontrollable train that never stops, right? Unless you start practicing stopping it. And why would you want to? Sure, sometimes you need thoughts. You need to do math. You need to plan an itinerary for a trip you're taking. But most of the time, your thoughts are not helpful. They are repetitive. They are in the past or in the future. They are predicting doom. They are, replaying regrets. They're not helpful. And when it comes to your creative practice and your creative business, it could be things like, I'll never be successful. Nobody wants my art. I'm not talented. I'm giving up. Just a lot of garbage that if you take the time to think about how it's affecting you, it makes you feel terrible. And before you try to tell me, but those thoughts are true, they're not true. They're not true. You can't know that they're true. You could be in this moment, is it true that I'm not talented? In this moment, you're sitting. You're sitting. You're making dinner. You're doing whatever. It's not true. They're not true. I recommend you read The Power of Now or something else by Eckhart Tolle because he's really good at explaining that stuff. Okay, so ideally for me, and probably all humans, it'd be best if we could just stop thinking altogether unless we really needed it. But that is not happening. It's not happening in my life. I'm practicing, but it's not happening. So a lot of times what I need is a positive thing to tell myself to replace the crazy stuff that my mind is telling me. One of the great ways, I'm going to tell you the things to say to replace, but one of the reasons I love painting, I love it. I think about it all the time. See, the thinking, it's thinking me. One of the things I love about being creative is that my mind mostly stops. I'm not consciously thinking anything. I am just making. I am just experiencing the paint. Maybe I'm concentrating on something specific. It's one of those times where, for me, it's in that complete flow state. I'm not thinking about anything. Time just goes by. It's just complete freedom. And part of the reason it feels that way is because you're not thinking. I'm not thinking because your thoughts just bog everything down. So in meditating, that can happen too when you're meditating or other activities that get you into the flow. Maybe it's paddleboarding or some other sport might make you feel that way, or I don't know, singing or dancing, listening to music, all that kind of stuff. It gets you in that flow state. And the reason you feel so good is because you're not thinking anymore. You are not being thunk. So some common thoughts, as we said, for creatives could just be I'm not talented. I don't have enough followers. No one loves me. I'm never going to make enough money. People don't want my money. I'm better than everyone else. How come I'm not getting attention? Just whatever it is for you, I'm sure you're familiar with it because it's probably been happening to you for a long time. So positive self-talk would be realizing that you're going down that road and replacing it with something positive. It can be pertinent, specific to your art, or if you're thinking about something else, it can be specific to that. But some things that I like to say to myself, one of them is just, I'm doing a good job. I'm doing a good job. You don't need to say anything more than that. You just say, or you can say your name. So I would say to myself, like, Jen, you're doing a good job. Everything is fine. Another thing I like to say to myself and remind myself of is, in this one moment, everything is fine. There are no debt collectors banging on my door. I have a roof over my head. There are birds singing outside, and also lawns being mowed. I have food. Well, I'm not eating it right now, but like in this moment, everything is fine. So sometimes I'll say to myself, either in this moment, everything is fine or all is well, or I'll say, I can handle this moment. Because you don't have to handle future moments right now. You can't. You can't. The future does not ever get here. And when it does get here, it's this moment. So all the things that you worry about when it comes to your creative practice, like, will I have enough money to buy art supplies? Will anyone come to my gallery opening? Will I ever be able to leave my job and do this for a living? None of that is really pertinent to this moment. The only thing that's pertinent to this moment is this moment. So right now, everything is fine. So if you start spiraling, take a breath and tell yourself, I'm doing a good job, or say, right now, everything is fine. You could add on to that, if there's something in a future moment, I'll handle it then. You can't handle it now because it doesn't exist. And then, the other thing I like to remind myself is my thoughts, they're not necessarily true. They're probably not true. They're probably much bigger and scarier than what the reality is. So just a gentle reminder to myself that my mind is thinking me. It has repetitive thought patterns. It loves to have something to chew on, to worry about. You'll notice the mind always wants to have an enemy. The mind always wants a problem to solve. The mind is just very, 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 very busy. But that creates a lot of stress and unhappiness for us humans. So, positive self-talk for you. When you notice that you can't stop thinking and when you're spiraling, stop and just think one of those thoughts that I just said. And if you can, try not to think at all for a few moments. It doesn't have to be minutes. Just try not to think for a second. Just notice how when you're not having those negative thoughts, you feel totally fine. Okay? If you have any questions, let me know and tell me what your favorite positive phrases are for yourself in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. I'm never leaving.